You are listening to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with Kristy Macero and Shelagh Maychek.
Hi everyone, welcome to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with your hosts, myself, Kristy and Shelagh. Today, Spilling the Tea with us is multiple tiny dog owner Garry Voight and homeowner, upsizing guru, and longtime, way back from high school friend, Greg.
Howdy.
Hello.
Let's talk condos today, shall we? That's the name of the game. That is what we are here to discuss. More and more are being built. 6-story wood frames, commercial on the bottom, high rises and cranes seen all across the lower mainland. Everywhere you look, it appears that density is growing. The demand for housing ceases to never stop. Fun fact, I've never lived in a condo ever. I've always wanted to. I went from a basement suite to a townhouse and then into a single family home, but I feel like I've missed it. And I always wondered what it would be like.
You skipped a step.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I always like the views. I always think it'd be cool to make small talk in the elevator with people.
You're one of those.
Yeah, like people would just hate getting in with me because they know that I would be like, how's the weather?
It's not as fun as it sounds, as it looks. Yeah.
And yeah, just like the hustle and bustle of like knowing, oh, that must be Thelma coming home again with her grocery cart.
Yeah.
Like just like getting to know your neighbors just by the sounds that they make.
The squeaky wheel.
It sounds nice.
But there are less romantic issues with condos.
Like what?
Noisy neighbors, suspicious hallway smells, and the forever wait for an elevator during peak times. I waited once 10 minutes for an elevator in a high rise, and there were 3 elevator banks. 10 minutes.
The worst is when you have to go to the bathroom. Oh. I've been there.
Click,
Let's just say it was very close call.
Like you get in and the person gets in behind you and presses the floor below you, and you're
no,
like,
I'm like, no.
bad idea, bad idea.
That's when you start doing the dance, like.
Before we get into spilling the tea with Greg and Garry, Shelagh, have you ever lived in a condo?
No, I feel like I also skipped that step. I've lived in basement suites. I've lived in houses and townhouses. I've lived in a fourplex and even a house on raised stilts when I was in the Arctic, and never a condo. So I wouldn't be opposed to living in a condo, though, as long as it's the right one.
I helped my best friend buy a condo, and every time I walk into it, I'm like, oh, it's so nice in here. Look at this view. And he goes, yeah, we bought this for you. He goes, we clearly bought this condo for you.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like it because it's kind of like a little community.
You're like, I love it.
Yeah, totally.
Perfect.
So let's get into, Greg, we're going to you first.
Yeah.
You've lived in a condo and it was absolutely gorgeous. Like we're talking top floor, vaulted ceilings, great layout, big kitchen, a huge bedroom, large den. What did you like about it? Those are all the things I liked about it,
Yeah.
but I didn't live there.
Yeah, it was great. I only shared one wall, so that was huge as well. So really like noise wasn't too bad. I enjoyed it. I liked the flexibility with the mortgage I got as well, because it was like the price was a bit lower. So I was able to do traveling while I was there and living in the condo.
More budget friendly.
Totally more budget friendly.
Right.
And like I didn't have to think too much about like budgeting. I still had money aside for doing other things. So that part was great. There are some downsides, like Shelagh said.
What was your biggest challenge living there?
Yeah, I think you are cramped for space. So like you are designing everything in your condo with space in mind. So your bed, it's, storage underneath, like your coffee table has to open up and hold your books. Like it's, it's tight. And we had a 1-bedroom, we had a den.
And you had a custom couch, I remember, because the couch fit perfectly there.
Yeah, which I found out after I measured that it couldn't have been a centimeter bigger. Otherwise, it would not have fit through my door.
Oh, no.
Measure your couches before.
See, we're already learning. We're already learning things here today.
Yeah.
So really measure even how to get it into the condo, because that's how tight the space is. Really.
Yeah, we took the door off and it was,
oh no,
it was close.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Okay. Thank you so much. And then you ultimately ended up moving. What was the number one reason why you moved?
Yeah, I like we were just absolutely splitting at the seams. We were totally cramped for space. I think that after living in a condo for such a long time, you start to accumulate stuff, you get more hobbies, and your den no longer fits it.
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
That's totally
yeah.
fine.
Catch-all room.
Yeah, totally a catch-all room. Like everything went in the den. It was totally packed to the seams.
That's so great. And we're going to get into that. But before we go there, Garry, have you ever lived in a condo?
I have lived in lots of condos.
And what did you like about it or dislike about it?
What I liked about it was you could just basically lock up and go away for an extended period of time. Not that I ever did, but you wouldn't have to worry about anything because the Strata obviously deals with everything. So you could just lock up and leave whenever you wanted, not have to worry about anything like that. Dogs, it is tough, especially if you're not on the ground floor, like taking your dogs out 3 times a day, going through the elevator, outside in the pouring rain. Luckily, I'm in a detached house now, so I just sit under the covered area and they run around the yard and do their things. So,
Nice.
But that was kind of one of the negatives that I thought with it, and as well noise. You can hear people above you, you can hear people beside you if you have shared walls, and if you have a couple people over, and depending on who your neighbors are, but.
Whoa, party location.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like Matt, if you have Matt over.
Yeah, well, lots of laughing and screaming, right? So, but,
That's amazing. Okay.
yeah, but noise is it's tough in a condo.
Okay. And we jokingly called, we being the mastermind group I belong in, it's now called the Healthier Curry Club. No, we called it Healthier Haggis Club now.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
Yeah,
Haggis.
and we jokingly call Garry the Condo King because he did so much work in them in Langley City because he did such a great job farming and he did such a great job with his sellers that he got lots of referrals and lots of business there. Of course, he does list everything, but there's a lot to look into when you're listing a condo. It's no easy feat. Sometimes people think listing single-family homes is a lot easier because you're not dealing with the whole mess of the strata, like that whole other side of things. Because you have to not only investigate the unit itself, but all the common property, all the parking, what direction the unit faces, and there's all these things that kind of go into pricing, and it kind of all reflects on like the final number that you and your seller sit down and pick, and it could even be a discrepancy between what floor you're on. So there's all these factors when it comes into pricing. It's not necessarily an easy thing. So we're gonna go to Greg first to spill the tea. Are you ready for the first scenario, Greg?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Greg, imagine you're living in that condo. Your realtor has just informed you that they've decided to list a unit exactly like yours, facing the exact same direction, a few floors above, for lower than your current listed price. Dun, dun, dun. How would you feel about the agent representing you and the other unit at the exact same time?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Oh, yeah, right?
Honestly, I think, like, I'm a professional. I would expect to have at least a professional conversation with the real estate agent on that. For me as a seller, I would hope to seek some kind of either benefit or how they're going to mitigate the risks involved in that. Like, so are we both just going to end up like competing and like we both end up with a terrible price on our homes?
Right. A race to the bottom almost.
Is mine a lot better in this scenario? Or of course it is, but
The gold floors. Yes.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing, right? Like say it's the exact same unit, like say it's just a builder quality, no one's done any real upgrades or anything. Say it's kind of newer and they're just a couple floors apart, but that one's higher and lower priced. Because this can happen. People do undercut pricing in the building. So would you expect that your agent would maybe talk to you first before he lists it?
yeah, I think like at least a heads up. I think that's what that for me, that'd be a minimum. I understand that they have a job to do to sell, but they're also working for you to help sell your place.
Right.
So at least have that conversation out of respect, and hopefully we can come to something where I'm comfortable, and if I'm comfortable waiting, I might wait.
Right.
And if that person has to sell right away and it's going to cost me 20 grand because I want to list at a higher price,
Right.
then why not for me? It makes sense. Wait, unless I have some house that I've got an offer in on or something. Right.
Yeah.
So
I love asking this scenario. It's almost slim to none that you're going to have two people with the exact same motivations for selling. And usually like one has like 2 parking stalls or something. Like there's
Some sort of difference.
some kind of difference that an agent could go back and say, you know what, that place is not yours because it won't work for many people because of XYZ or something with yours. It could be either way. So I love using this scenario when we're down in boot camp. I've done this to you before, Gary.
Yep.
You were my person that I did this to when we were downstairs training. So I'm just curious, has this ever happened to you? Have you ever had to list 2 in the same building?
Yeah, I have done that, and Greg made a lot of good points actually with what he said. And I think it's just as simple as having the conversation with both parties. At the end of the day, the other one that was going to list it for lower, regardless, would list it with you or without you, with another agent. So transparency is really important. Having the conversation is really important. And, at the end of the day, the buyer will make a decision that's best for them anyway. So as long as you're, us as the realtors are working on the best interest of that seller, which you can work on the best interest of both sellers. And at the end of the day, the buyer will make the decision that they want to make. And a lot of the times they're realtors showing them the units and depending on price, they'll make the decision that they want to make. And as well as if one party wants to sell for a lower price, it doesn't necessarily mean the other party has to sell at a lower price either, right?
That's right.
Motivations could be completely different. So I think, it's important to have transparency in the conversation. And then I've done it before a couple of times, and there's never been an issue with it. Because like you said, maybe one unit's a top floor unit, maybe one unit's a middle floor unit, maybe one unit has 2 parking, one has 1 parking. So generally there would be a reason why the discrepancy in price is there.
I've been in a unit before where the seller had 7 parking stalls.
Oh, wow.
When they purchased the unit.
Waterstone.
No.
Really?
No, it was a place down in Guilford in a condo, and she just purchased 7 parking stalls.
Wow. That's
Parking
unnecessary.
stall money.
Oh, here's
Must
the other
be nice.
twist. She didn't drive. She didn't own a car.
Oh.
She showed it.
I'm
She
surprised
showed me
the
the unit.
developer
She's like,
let her do that.
all free. I don't use. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing.
That is crazy. Yeah, there's generally something, whether it's like the location of the locker or like where the parking stall is in relation to the elevator. There's always some kind of difference. But Gary, have you ever had to show like 2 of your listings for sale to like a set of buyers that come to the building? And do you comment on each unit, or do you just kind of let them see the facts and do their thing, or?
Oh, that's a good question. You would have to get permission, and again, you owe full confidentiality to each of those clients, right? When you are working on their best interest. So if that one party perhaps listed for less and it was for some sort of specific motivation and they gave you permission to disclose that, then perhaps if somebody asked, then you could say it.
Right.
Because you've been given that permission from your seller. I've opened the door for both of them, and if I have permission, I'll say why. But if not, then I'll just say this one's listed at this price and this one's listed at this price.
Right.
And if there are certain differences, then you can point them out. You kind of got to be a little bit careful with what you say on if you're representing both parties, because at the end of the day, you have to make sure that you're representing your seller's best interest, even though you have both of them listed. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. So again, which we already know you were like this, but high integrity, high ethics.
Totally.
At the end of the day, because it's not about you and it's not about your sales, it's about your client's best interests, which is super cool. We had 2 units listed, but it was one after the other. Okay. So it was a townhouse complex. It was an inside unit. It was a 2-bedroom, really nice. And we sold it. But when we sold it, we only sold it for asking price.
What a shame.
Full price offer. The market was a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And we only sold it for full ask. Like, I was very excited for my sellers. During the open house that I had one of them, I had another neighbor knock on the door and said, hey, once you're done your open house here, would you mind coming down and viewing our unit? And maybe you could sell ours too. And I actually said to her, I said, yeah, that's no problem. Let me fulfill my obligations here. I'll be by at 4:30. So I shut down the open house. I went to the neighbor, and I said to them, look, we've got an offer that's coming in. It'll be pending. why don't we line up your sale right after this one sells? Because I wanted to make sure that
So you know what to base it on.
yes, and it wasn't in the area, so I wanted to make sure that I wasn't caught running between open houses. Like, some agents do that. They run across the complex to show multiple units that they have. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to do one at a time. That was just my preference. And this other unit was like an end unit, 3-bedroom, like air conditioning. It was so different, and it fetched a way higher price. There was a couple that was waiting to
They needed the extra bedroom.
yes, and they were waiting to purchase in there, and they ended up spending over ask. And as you can imagine, the first clients called and they were like, hey, why did they get so much more money? And I'm like, it's a different product. And like, we use the same staging equipment, we use the same photographer, we use the same floor plan company, we
The
use
same candlesticks.
it was the same candlesticks. It was exactly the same, but they almost were like, "Hey, why did they get more money?" And it really like it was definitely their issue. They were dealing with their own stuff, but for me, it was almost like they were questioning my
with what work you did for each unit, like, or something like
yes,
that.
Yeah.
It's actually funny. I've had this similar situation when I first started in real estate, and it was a house. Actually, there were neighbors, and I had one of the houses listed, and it was a better product in my opinion. And then the neighboring house listed for more, and it sold for more. So that was a lesson that I learned quickly. And it's just at the end of the day, some buyers will just pay more for
what they
for
want.
a product, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
it could be like they like they like that this one, the address is different, and they're willing to pay more. You just never know, and someone could just be willing to pay more for a different unit, and it is what it is,
Yeah, it wasn't a great, like, the conversation just didn't make me feel that good after, because I always give like 100%, and I very specifically did one and then the next one, and I, like I said, like Sheila's saying, I use the same candlesticks.
Yeah. It just felt a little discouraging because we did everything right. Nothing out of the ordinary. Like the standards are the same no matter what listing.
Yeah.
So it was just discouraging that they were unhappy at the end of the day.
Yeah, but again, people have their own thing, and who knows now, like, how they would feel about it. But it is what it is.
Dust under the rug.
Yes, exactly. Like, it's all experience.
As they'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna go into scenario number 2, Greg. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You're so ready. You look ready. Here we go. Oh God, here we ready. Everyone at home, are you ready?
Might sting.
Yeah, this one's gonna sting. It's moving day, and you just received keys to your condo. The seller was an out-of-town investor and had never physically been in the unit. The listing went up, multiple offers occurred, and you had to buy it quickly. But upon key handover, during your walkthrough, you realize that there's no storage locker in the entire building, even though one was advertised. So the reason why we're laughing is because Greg kind of had a situation with his condo.
A situation.
So Greg, we want you to tell your story, then we'll come back to the scenario. But how did you deal with your locker kind of situation?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. Like, how do I even start with this? I don't know if it's how I found a use for 2 keys that had been at the bottom of my key bowl for 5 years, or
Like, what do these do?
or like a cautionary tale for like new, first time homeowners. But
We'll guide you slightly here. Sheila and I came to list Greg's unit because his den, like he was telling you before, was piling up with stuff. Okay,
You're like, we just don't have the room.
we
anymore.
just don't have the room. We need more space.
we got to move.
Yeah, so we were like, okay, no problem. We ordered the Form B, and we were told there was no storage locker by Greg and his wife. And when we got the Form B, they had a storage locker the entire time.
I opened it. I'm like, oh, maybe this is wrong.
And was the storage locker on the Form B when the unit was originally purchased by you guys?
The Form B. So
Confused.
So
purchase with
I
us.
think I chalk it up to, like, I don't know, maybe a comedy of errors. Moving day was an absolute nightmare as it is. You order a U-Haul, they're like, we don't have a U-Haul. Like, so you end up moving with 5 truckloads. Realtor drops by, key handover happens. And like, oh yeah, by the way, there's like a couple extra keys, I'm pretty sure, for like the garbage room and something else. We kind of blow through that. You just move into your place, and then you rely on your real estate
Agent,
people,
yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and like you go in and say, hey, I thought there seems like there's a storage locker listed. So we had a conversation. No, that's just a standard, like it was a standard listing. Definitely no storage locker. Okay. So a little disappointed, but we were really excited because we love the area. We moved there for,
It's such a great condo.
allowed our dogs,
Yeah.
great condo, everything. So, I'm blissfully ignorant for like this entire time. Kristy comes in this like, do you know what Form B is? I have no idea. So this is how I came to know what Form B is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be educated.
Yeah.
Kristy's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you do have a storage locker. So I'm like racking my brain. I'm like, no, this is impossible. So I'm going around like my own apartment complex, and they don't like advertise, hey, the storage room's over here, thieves.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So I'm literally,
Nondescript gray door.
I wish there was a camera on me because I'm taking my key fob and I'm going in my own underground parking lot, fobbing around like at random doors.
Like you've stolen the
Like
key.
yeah. Like I've gone into somebody's vehicle. And
Yeah,
like I'm
you're a
looking
property crime rat. Yeah.
So I go and tap all these doors. One of them beeps, but it won't open. I'm like the key bowl. So I had these keys sitting in my key bowl that I had no idea what they were for. And like, they're keys. You don't just throw them out.
Yeah.
So
you hold on to them
That's
forever.
absurd.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's got a set of keys at home that they just
Don't know what it's
don't
for.
like, what is that for again? And I have no idea. So it turns out I ended up contacting the property management. They came down with me. There was a special key that opened up that actual room and a key fob, double security.
Nice.
It's this whole thing. I go in there and I'm looking, and I should backtrack a little bit because this same property management, I was talking about buying a storage locker because we're selling our place.
That's right. You would have had to.
And it's the weirdest thing because the property managers, they don't actually deal with storage locker like buying and selling. It's like an owner
Yeah.
thing. So who do you contact? So I start talking to people in the building, and they're all like nudge, like I just sold mine for 10 grand. I had 2 storage lockers and I just sold mine for 10 grand. And then I'm talking to a few other people. I'm like, well, who bought it? Like, how do you go about buying this?
It's like the black market.
I
for
remember we
storage
were saying, because we
lockers.
were like, that's a big deal. Storage
Yeah.
locker is a big deal. Can you get one?
Yeah.
But it was quite a bill. So.
Oh yeah. So this, one of my other people in the building, they're like, yeah, there's this storage locker that's in there that's like virtually empty. You got to see if this person wants to sell it.
Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
God.
So I get in there
unreal.
and like I walk in the room and there's like, I don't know, 15 storage lockers. They're beautiful. They're like 10 feet by like, I don't know, 5 feet wide. They're 8.5 feet tall. Like
Almost the
it's-
size of your den that
It's
you've
the
been
exact
piling
same
up.
size as my den.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get in there and I'm like, oh my God, I just tried to buy my own storage locker.
You're like, it's me. I'm the guy.
I'm the guy. And I look at these two, and I'm like, oh no, how am I gonna get these 2 locks off? There's these massive padlocks on there. And I look at one of them and I'm like, oh, it's got this unique key shape and everything like
Oh
that. And I'm
my
like,
God.
you gotta be kidding me. I go upstairs, I kid you not, get the key from the bottom of
Oh
my
my
key
God.
bowl. Go down there and it sure enough opens the lock.
This is like Cinderella slipper
Yeah.
for storage lockers.
You could have canceled your sale. You could have been like,
Yeah.
Kristy, we have enough room now.
Yep, we don't need it.
Oh, but like it's kind of a blessing and a curse. Like I sold because I was bursting at the seams.
Yeah.
But it was like the perfect timing. Like the market I
Yes.
bought and my house that I moved into, it like went up significantly. Like,
Yeah.
so the whole thing's kind of ironic because I actually came out on top.
Yeah.
That's
Now-
crazy.
Now, how long were you in the condo without a locker? How many years were you living there?
5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like what I can compare it to is like buying a car without a trunk. You can
Right.
do it, but your groceries are going to be sitting on your passenger seat,
Yeah.
and your friend's going to have to sit somewhere else.
You're
Like,
holding the bag, bud.
Wow.
That is hilarious.
That You could do it.
I feel like this is good for you to get out. I feel like this is cleansing for you and you're right. The home you did buy was absolutely beautiful, and like you're in such a better position today. And you sold with a storage locker ultimately, right?
Well,
like you didn't have to buy one. So
And like and as a new homeowner, home buyer, like you do trust the real estate agent, but also. When if you get something like a Dropbox where there's hundreds of documents, I think that's a good stop point and say, hey, whoever you're working with as a real estate agent, what's my responsibility on these documents that you've sent me?
Yeah.
Are you going to be actually going through them? Are we going to have a conversation on, like, have you looked at the strata minutes? Or, because in my head, even when I went to the underground parking on my first showing, I'm looking for like cracks in the foundation. That's where my mind's at. I'm not thinking that there's going to be a storage locker in a folder somewhere.
right.
It's not something that we actually physically saw either. So I think that's another thing that I would have liked on my showing is, I know it's probably messy and it's got the owner's stuff in it, but it would be good to know that it's, to see it and just be there.
We know of an agent that sold a condo, and she ended up selling it, and she was told it had a storage locker and it didn't. And on key handover day, the buyers who bought were under the assumption that it had a locker or else they would not have bought it, and it ended up going to court. And like it was horrible because she had done everything that she possibly could. It wasn't even built yet, so it's not like she could have walked through it. She was told by and she was told by the seller that it did have a condo. It was like an assignment, and it was unfortunate.
Usually that stipulates on the contract, though.
Yeah, they had to settle, so there was something that was missed there, and it was obviously horrific for the agent, and it was too bad. Gary, I got to ask you, have you ever had conflicting information on a Form B?
Yes, and unfortunately, property managers don't like to verify information on a Form B. Like if you email a property manager and like, hey, I just want to confirm like this parking stall is not short-term rental and that it's actually designated to this unit, because a lot of the times there's an asterisk on the parking stall and storage locker number and says this may be subject to a short-term rental. And property managers don't verify anything because they don't want to be liable. So there was a discrepancy on it, and what we ended up doing was having the seller warrant and guarantee that the unit comes with this parking stall and this storage locker number, which does hold them liable for those two things.
So going back to what my story was before about the situation that ended in a lawsuit, they tried to sue because the Form B was incorrect. They tried to sue the strata company, and the strata company would not talk to them. Yeah. And it ended up being like the realtor got sued, the strata got sued, and the seller was getting sued by the buyer's agents because the Form B was wrong. And then when they tried to call and be like, hey, like the Form B is literally wrong, you sent us wrong information, because the poor agent was just going off of what was on the paper, but she'd never physically seen it. That she was going off of the information, that she was provided. Because we as agents think that should be correct. And it sucks in your situation, Greg, because it could have been verified.
Oh, so many different ways.
Yeah.
I mean, like, hey, what are those two keys for? Like, again, and like, could you just check with like,
ask the seller.
Ask the seller, like, and they'd be like, yeah, those are for the storage locker, or there's just so many. I think it is. I chalk it up to like a comedy of errors, like I think, and then you feel as a when you buy something like that and you find out after 5 years, you're like, how did I miss this?
All right.
And I think that's just it. You rely on professionals, and it's complicated. There's a lot of legal documents that you guys do. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, I had that form.
Right.
But what it actually says on the form is it doesn't say like so-and-so. It doesn't even say a person's name. It just says a strata lot number.
That's right.
Because you're not, every owner is just verified by like a lot number.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's just like you're looking at, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
Lot number so-and-so, parking stall, whatever, and then I don't even think they call it. They called it something else. Like
Sometimes they call them bike lockers too.
yeah, and anyway, it was just there was just some number on it. Like
You're like,
it was
I
hilarious when I
hoping
found
someone
it.
would walk me through
Yeah,
it, and it
can
didn't
be hard
happen.
to decipher if you've never seen one before.
Yeah.
Or if
Yeah.
you've only seen one prior. It's,
Yeah.
And that's why we are there to guide people through. So to conclude this episode and what we've learned here today, you can trust but verify. As a realtor, you need to make sure that you are reading the documents, making sure your clients understand the documents, make sure that you view the locker, make sure you view
Lay eyes on it.
Yes, physically lay eyes on this stuff to make sure that buyers know what they're getting. Maybe show up on key handover day, make sure that the keys are labeled. How nice would that have been if the keys were labeled? And you can't trust the strata, unfortunately. You can't trust that Form B document because more than often we see them that are incorrect. They've got incorrect information on them, which is too bad. So thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it. That was such a fun story. So we'll just end the episode with our ceremonial cheers. Cheers.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with Kristy Massero and Shelagh Maycheck.